Dazio, we're returning to our What If Civilization Restarted series. Well, this green nation wants expansion, so is this nation. But neither wants to get too powerful in a way. But this nation, this red nation right here, knowing it's really weak, because it's in the middle of the desert, basically, I'm pretty sure. It's very weak. The nations launched their invasion from the north. But the other nation, seeing this, decides to get involved in it, and they decide to invade from the south. Advancing from the south. Well, it's not really green. More like an aqua, more so green. Kind of like a tropical ocean, maybe, if it was green. But they advance, and they end up with the front together. But accidentally, definitely accidentally, this nation accidentally launched an attack there, which led to war breaking out. And while these nations start mobilizing, this nation mobilizes and puts forces over here, and makes a naval landing here. Now, these two nations don't get along, and that will continue. It's like none of these nations get along, actually, and this nation's just chilling. Sometimes not. And this nation's planning its next move. Well, 1 second, now to fix that. Yeah, I've got that fixed. Now to slow their advance. And then this nation launches a counterattack and continues advances here. And even crosses into the territory from the north and kicks their naval landing out. But this nation holds on to the front. And well, this is embarrassing. They're both losing ground. With over here, land is lost significantly fast. Not significantly fast, very fast. Extremely fast. Significantly doesn't make sense. And well, they're still advancing in this region. But with this nation mobilized, it launches a counterattack over here. With them both basically in a standstill. With them deciding to push them back in their territory, launching an offensive here. With this nation thinking of how they can get a quick victory. So they launch an offensive up the Nile, whatever it's called in this timeline. I forgot to name some of the countries. Maybe I could do a live stream where we name them or something. And well, or take pictures of the different nations and take a photo and then get them named, because it's a good time to start naming countries. Yeah. Let's see. They managed to move into this land and take over this river. And they advance over here as, yeah. And then they advance over here to get to cities built. And they do this, hoping to get a quick peace. But the nation didn't want peace. Until they're offered a mild peace treaty, like really mild. And well, this leads to that nation expanding, but that nation also managed to make some expansion. So let's see in the peace treaty. Technically, that nation gained more lands than overall technically still gained lands despite losing a bunch. But the lands they lost are more valuable than the lands they got. So technically, they lost out. But overall, it went well. And it wasn't a harsh one. You know, this nation, I like that color. And now, for an expansion. They decide to expand along the coast. As a lot of them more that. Interestinger. Well, they do this. And then this last nation decides to join them. as they've taken over the coast and formed a strong nation. And well, now to get out of that region, nothing else happens, but these two nations start building up good relations to partition there. And well, there's a few reasons they're doing that. And then the Pink Nation, well, they're in expansion mode. As they decide to do this, well, no one's ready. So they can take apart that nation. And then they take apart the Green Nation and this Gold Nation. Because they lost a war and it didn't give them a fair peace treaty. With them rapidly growing in strength in multiple ways, they decide to invade here with the goal of taking over this puppet, with forces of the Gold Empire moving into this puppet, with them making an encirclement, and they take advantage of this to push down. And well, they start getting pushed back. But their forces do this to take some key land to negotiate the puppet. As they negotiate with them, the puppet still exists, but it's greatly reduced. Greatly reduced. To here. Yes. But on the plus side, they keep that. But the coast is probably more valuable. A man shall lose a lot of land, but they got a fair peace treaty. With the Blue Nation not really happy about this. But there's nothing they can really do as they're weakening. With this nation deciding to go after this nation, which was a bad idea. As they advance to here, they're on winning quickly and rapidly. This turns the Beige Nation on them, yes, which launches a landing here. And not just the Beige Nation, but the nation here, as they do not want this nation becoming too strong. With them agreeing pretty quick to a peace treaty because the advances on the eastern side of their country is out of control. As they are forced into, they push this nation back, and then that nation, and then manage to launch an advance across here. But why they have to leave this is because, well, this nation is just steadily advancing across the front. So they decide to meet for peace. So let's see the peace treaty in a few months, and then the occupation zone pulls out. But they lost a lot of land here, and they still gained lands there, but they lost more. Now, the weaker nation being to the south there. With this nation not liking this nation's existence, as it sees as a threat to its existence because it blocks coastline. Yes, this nation is going to turn in, is an overpowered nation. The strongest nations here is the Red Nation, that nation. Over here, we got the Pink Nation, Orange Nation, then Beige Nation is the top three. Here it's, well, this nation, or that nation, depends on what you count. This nation, then that nation, then that nation. But if you don't include that, that's the third nation. And then here, it's, well, this nation. If we don't include that, that nation, this nation. Yeah. We got a lot of strong nations. But this nation here wants to be able to get that, but they can't get the right advantage. So they give some lands. Why, you may ask? Well, to create an ally to the south. For in case of war, promising them lands of expansion. And these lands were just to get them to expand. Well, because expansion is necessary. And as we know, this new nation isn't really a favorite of any of those nations due to how strong it is. This nation being the only nation that can really rival it. And well, that's all for today's video. Please like, subscribe, and comment. Wild Mapper out, but not until you subscribe. Bye, guys!